one of the things that I see with social media is you do see a lot more engagement between the viewers and especially the fans and the creators of the show. And to a certain extent, I think you rephrase that. I think we have seen, even prior to this, where there is a real relationship in the sense that the fans say X and then the creators respond. And I'm thinking of Lost, which was heavily, almost created a lot of the paradigms for using social media with a show. And it was, we did this and the fans hate it. Well, we're going to somehow respond to that. We're not necessarily going to knee-jerk respond, but we are going to respond. But it feels like now where people have almost feel emboldened, like I'm going to demand the thing that I deserve, and either I'm going to expect you to do it, or I'm going to be angry when you don't do it. And I think not just in television, but more broadly, I think because it gives everybody a voice and because it gives that sense of relationship, and it sometimes creates genuine engagement, there's now this danger that it's turned into, I helped program that show.
I think the word is entitlement, frankly. There's a little bit of a sense of entitlement that because I can because my voice can, when joined with the voices of other fans, affect things, then it should affect things. That's not necessarily, we don't want necessarily a cause and effect relationship there. I think it's showrunners, executives, people who work on a show should listen to fans. There's no way you should discount it. I think in some ways it's making people more honest about the creative process and about whether they do take fans' decisions or thoughts or opinions on board. But you have to have your own vision, and I think, if anything, hopefully it's making people more rigorous. They have more reasons for, how they can defend a decision or a choice. But I hope it doesn't make them timid, because there's no way that I want fans to write TV shows, mainly because they're terrible at it. I'm a fan. I can't write TV, and this is why I write about TV, because I fully recognize that I don't have the creative gene that it takes to tell fictional stories. But the thing about listening to fans is, which ones do you listen to? There are so many. And they're divided into so many camps. There are certain shows that I follow where you almost expect armed warfare to break out among different parts of the fandoms, because one part of the fandom of this show believes X, the other part believes Y. Well, the thing is, there's so many different fans, and if you start letting all those voices in your head, if you're the showrunner or the creative spark behind the show, you will get lost, quite literally lost. I'm not referring to the TV show Lost, but I think what you don't want to do is let so many people into the process that it becomes muddy and indistinct and just mushy. That is the worst way to go. It's hard, I think, in this day and age to retain your own creative vision with so many people talking at you, whether it's executives at the network, the studio, your own team, fans, this, that, and the other. But I think that just makes for a process where hopefully at the end of the day, you feel more strongly than you did before, and you're not just giving in to what people want because you're afraid of their backlash. That is a terrible way to make creative decisions.
Well, and from the other side of the equation, I was having a conversation recently with Alyssa Rosenberg, and I was saying it sort of strikes me that if you look at the history of fandom and popular culture, a lot of it to me is traced through the history of science fiction fandom.
Absolutely.
Because, you go back to the 20s and, literally people organizing in a formal way and newsletters and cons and that kind of a thing. And if you look at it from that history, we're now going to come up with that sort of thing is going to get close to 100 years old. I think there was a point where it was, look, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we love it, and we want to celebrate it to let them know how much we love it, and we want to encourage other people, hey, you should read this book too. And it has shifted over time, and I'd have to think about when we can pinpoint the moment where it was, we're not passive consumers. We're going to tell you what we think, and we're going to try to shape it. And when we don't like it, we're not just going to go, we're going to organize, campaigns to tell you how much we don't like it. I just literally can think back to, if you think science fiction, the 20s and the 50s, in science fiction fandom.
It was to celebrate the creations of other people, and now it's to influence the creations of other people. And that's a whole different paradigm.
I read about some, people who've started campaigns to express their anger and betrayal at George R.R. Martin because he hasn't finished Like they're literally taking fandom and devoting all that energy into, you know, expressing anger and frustration. And I do think, you know, for all the positive of, you know, the internet and social media platforms and whatnot, that entitlement, I think, leads to some things that I think are ultimately, I mean, look, whether they're wrong or right is not for me to say. There might be times where I go, yeah, no, that's a valid point, or I might say, you people don't know what you're talking about. But I think as a force, I think that's generally quite destructive.
It can be. I think the thing is, you know, what's hard to separate out in this day and age is the fans who are simply fans from the kind of agitating, campaigning people you're talking about. Now, I'm not against campaigns. I think having an engaged fandom is a sign of that there's health in that world, that there's something alive and vital in that world. I just think that there are quite a few people who are, you know, kind of the silent minority. They're the lurkers on the message boards who only come out and comment once a year. I really think it's important to retain a space for them to go to where they feel like it's not just going to be a bunch of people shouting. Just from my own perspective as someone who runs a website, I don't ever want people to feel like there's an accepted point of view, and if you don't toe that line, you need to leave and we're going to shout you down. There is a very vocal minority in every fandom, or vocal minorities in every fandom, and that's fine. I think the internet does allow people to cross a line into incivility. It's a very easy line to cross. It's not just in fandoms. It's not just in the Comic-Con community, if you will. It's something that just the social element of civility and politeness and thoughtfulness can sometimes be lost. And I think it's kind of up to the people who want to create these communities, or like myself, dip into these communities and engage them on occasion, or on a weekly basis even. We have to set the rules, and that's what I think social media can kind of help mediate, is that, okay, this can help us form a community, but what kind of rules will this community have? Every community has rules. Even if it's a free-for-all, that's a rule also. So it's, you know, fandoms actually have become very sophisticated about, okay, we're going to go discuss this over here, we're not going to talk about that because it's too divisive. So there are ways that that's evolving, but I definitely think you're right. There is always going to be an element, and it's a very small percentage in my view, of people who want to be disruptive, or who want to be entitled, and who want to get their views across and shut everyone else down. And the main thing is, you have to just tell people what the limits are. And if they're not willing to abide by them, then that's a lot of places that I know, a lot of websites. You can block people on Twitter, on Facebook, you can block commenters. You know, is there going to be, not necessarily a policeman in the room, but is there going to be a guide? Is there going to be someone to kind of make sure that this does not descend into chaos? Because here's my thing about commenting and engaging a fan community. If you let a certain 2% take over, they will. But that's only 2%. You cannot ignore the 98% of people who are thoughtful, or at least willing to engage other people on the other side of the debate. You know, that 2% in any discourse, whether it's political, entertainment-driven, whatever, if you let them take over, they will.